Hello and welcome to How Mundane, the least interesting place on the internet. Today, we got Team Rocket Returns. Good lord, these boxes were expensive. But we're going to open one up, see what we get. And we're going to talk about something a little different today. So, some of you may have noticed through all of these videos, focusing on me opening up packs, that my fingers are a little weird. And that is because I have a condition. Oh wow, first pack with the art rare. That's is that the first time we've had a first pack art rare? Maybe. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and this video is going up on May 1st. May is Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month. So, you may have heard of it, you may have not heard of it, but I will tell you kind of the quick version of what Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is and kind of what that means. So, it is a genetic condition of which there are currently 13 known varieties. All of them impact collagen production / connective tissue, and 12 of the 13 types have specific gene markers associated that can be found in genetic testing. The 13th type, hypermobile type, has not been yet tied to specific genes, and in fact there is some belief that there may actually be still multiple types yet to be found that all just kind of fall into that, hey, there's the Mimikyu. Hypermobile bucket, because the kind of range of symptoms seen by people in the hypermobile type group is pretty substantial compared to the identified types that are a little more well-defined. So, for people who have this genetic condition, again, depending on the specific type, the symptoms vary. But most commonly, it is associated with joint hypermobility and a phenomenon called subluxation, where the joint will kind of sort of dislocate. It is a condition that a lot of people refer to as an invisible disorder, because really, for the most part, the kinds of things you deal with having EDS are not things that are going to be super obvious to most people who just see you. Things like, again, that joint instability, chronic pain, lots of gastrointestinal complications and comorbidities that can come with this because of the role that the affected genes play in producing those organs. Surprisingly, there's even some comorbidity with certain propensities in, I wouldn't say mental illness, but propensities towards anxiety in particular seem to somehow be related to this, again, based on the role that these particular genes have in producing parts of the structure of the matter in your brain. So, what does it mean for me as somebody with hypermobile type? For the most part, it's a whole lot of joint instability, and I will say my case, compared to what some people have to deal with, is probably considered comparatively mild. Oh, hey, here we go. Another art rare. But, and I'm going to trigger warning this, if you are squeamish at all, you may want to look away for a moment, but I would like to show you what I mean by joint hypermobility with my hand. And it's, well, it's this. And this doesn't hurt at all. In fact, I can do it with most fingers to a pretty substantial degree. So, for those of you who are squeamish, you can look back at the screen again. Imagine that basically all of your joints are kind of constantly unstable like that. There's the mole trace. There's your SAR for the box. So, for me on a day-to-day basis, it means that if I'm participating in kind of normal day-to-day life, I got to make sure I'm wearing good and stable shoes pretty much all the time. Depending on what I may be doing, I may need to... Here's another art rare. This is a pretty good box so far. May need to wear a brace on ankles, hips, shoulders, elbows, kind of all of those different joints. I did try the ring splint thing for a while, kind of decided that wasn't for me. I have many of the gastrointestinal comorbidities that come with this and have to deal with various medications that go with that. But yeah, certainly other types of EDS have different considerations. I do have some of the skin fragility, and you may have noticed over time when I am doing some of these, sometimes you'll see little paper cuts and things on my hands as I get them pretty frequently, although my skin is not nearly as fragile as I have seen some other people who have different types of this condition have. The riskiest subtype of EDS is the one that's referred to as vascular, because with fragile blood vessels comes all kinds of risks in day-to-day life. But yeah, by and large, it is a not particularly well understood or, it's not like some other diseases that have been as thoroughly studied and understood for decades and decades and decades. In fact, I have had this for my entire life, and I was not diagnosed with this until I was over the age of 40. So it is definitely not something that people were necessarily looking for back in the 80s and 90s in the same way that they are today. And that is why May is, of course, Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. One of the other key reasons for awareness is because it is a genetic condition, and because it is actually, by and large, autosomal dominant. Anyone who has a parent who has EDS has a 50-50 chance of having it themselves. So, understanding, diagnosing, identifying those cases is helpful in identifying it in children who then may be able to deal with some of those complications that come with it at a younger age. Or at least, they know what to expect. Because like most of the symptoms that I experienced, I didn't actually start experiencing until I was a teenager. And so, if I had, and I do have a child who also has EDS, I've been able to warn him that, these things are potentially coming, even if you're not experiencing significant symptoms just yet. I will throw some EDS links in the description so that if you're interested in reading more about this condition, you will have the opportunity to do so. Thanks for being mundane with us. We will see you next time. Bye.